Now to the record-setting heat in Europe. They are seeing triple-digit temperatures in Portugal and Spain, and that is making it hard for firefighters battling a series of wildfires. And Italy is in the middle of a severe drought that threatens some of the country's most famous food exports. Chris Livesay has more from one Italian region that is running out of water. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. You are looking at the Tiber River. Now, the ancient Romans used it to navigate, to supply the city. Rome literally would not exist without it. But now, thanks to that drought, the worst in 70 years, well, parts of it have been reduced to a muddy swamp.
We shouldn't be able to walk here. This is foundations of bridge, and there was also a river port here.
Ancient Roman ruins in Rome's Tiber River dating back nearly 2,000 years, now revealed by a heat wave and Italy's worst drought in 7 decades, says Professor of Urban Planning Tom Rankin.
The water normally is up to our waist or shoulder height at this point, and now I'd say it's gone beyond a wake-up call.
Some towns are now rationing water, and Rome could be next. Now, there's a trick to getting a good drink out of these Roman fountains. But that's only if you get here in time. The city is considering shutting them all off if the drought worsens. Experts blame global warming. This month in the Italian Alps, 11 climbers were crushed to death when record temperatures caused part of this glacier to collapse. Downhill in much of Italy's north, the heat and drought have left rice fields for risotto bone dry. And the Po River Valley, which produces 40% of Italy's food, like pasta and wine, now in a government state of emergency. In the Rome countryside, the alarm is audible. I can hear the grass crunching beneath our feet. The Petrucci olive orchard has crafted exquisite extra virgin oil since the 1600s. But the drought has turned its future into a row of tombstones. Half are dead.
Half are dead.
And this is one of them.
Yes.
Sabina Petrucci now has to truck in water. What does this mean for people who want to buy good olive oil?
We will ask a lot more for the final product price.
So higher energy costs and the drought mean higher prices at the grocery store.
Yes. We have to think about all this business, even if it's a family business since forever.
So after centuries of making olive oil, this might be the end?
Yes.
And now solving those problems, they just got a lot more difficult. Last night, the Prime Minister of Italy tendered his resignation after one of the country's biggest parties pulled its support from his government. So that means things like the environment and the drought. Let's just say they're not Italy's only emergencies. Anne-Marie, Vlad?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned some of the crops that are being impacted. You mentioned the olive oil industry. What other foods are going to be impacted by this weather change?
You know, it's hard to think of food that won't be impacted by it. Even Parmesan cheese, for instance. I mean, think about the cows that have to produce that milk. Your average Parmesan cheese cow needs to consume at least 20 gallons of water every day to produce enough milk to reach those standards, those quality standards, in order to make Parmesan cheese. Also things like wine, also things like tomatoes that we love in our, tomato sauce and our spaghetti sauce. That kind of thing. And also think about important foodstuffs that go to supplying the rest of the world. We're dealing with a global food crisis right now. So it's really not limited to just those kinds of elite quality, prestige foods that we think of when it comes to Italy.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up, Chris, which is sort of give us a macro view of this global food crisis that we're talking about. We've already seen the effects of war, the war that you've covered in Ukraine, that has had far-reaching effects on the African continent, and now we're talking about something like this, climate change, and the impact on global food supply.
Yeah, that's right, Vlad. I mean, it's really the perfect storm, ironically, because they could use a literal storm here right now. But you mentioned Ukraine. I mean, right now, about 20 million tons of grain are sitting in silos inside of Ukrainian ports because of blockades that are taking place there by the Russian military. That's critical food supplies destined for places like South Sudan, where millions of people have recently been cut off from food aid by the World Food Program because because of the global supply chain that's been interrupted by this war. Also, energy costs have been surging in places like Italy because of the war in Ukraine and because of the sanctions that the West has implemented on Russia. Italy was second only to Germany when it came to their energy dependency on Russia. So that means right now, farmers like the ones we showed in our piece are now paying double for their prices, and those costs are going to be passed on to you and me, the consumer.
All right, Chris Livesay for us in Italy. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.